Welcome, superstar! In this video, I'm going to talk about cost-based pricing versus value-based pricing and how you can price your coaching, consulting, and other expert programs. So first I'm going to share what cost-based pricing is, and then some of the challenges and problems that I see with it. Then I'll get into what is value-based pricing and how to do it, as well as some of the challenges that you might face there too. Then I'll do a comparison and talk about why I recommend value-based pricing. You probably have already experienced this. As an entrepreneur, it can be really challenging to figure out what to set your price at. I come across this again and again myself and also with my clients. Now, the fear is that we will either set the price too low and we'll leave a whole bunch of money on the table, or that we'll set the price too high and nobody will buy it because it's too expensive. So cost-based pricing is pretty much a default strategy that most people use. Cost-based pricing looks like finding out what it costs to deliver a product or service and then pricing it a little bit above that or a lot of it above that. So some percentage, some markup. The retail boutiques tend to do 2 to 3 times their wholesale price. There's certain rules out there. But when it comes to coaching and consulting, it can get really, really murky. It gets murky because, first of all, you have to really understand your costs. Now, that means your variable costs, which are sometimes really easy to figure out, but also your fixed costs and covering all your overhead, which can be a little bit more challenging. That said, cost-based pricing tends to be a lot easier than the alternative, which I'll talk about in a minute. It's pretty straightforward. It's just math. You just have to find the numbers, crunch the numbers, and you know what your costs are, and you can know what to mark up your product or service. But the problem with cost-based pricing is that you're often leaving a lot of money on the table, at least in my world. In my world, where I work with people on boutique products and services that are highly differentiated, that are very special, very unique, deliver incredible outcomes, when you're operating in that kind of elevated market space, you definitely don't want to price based on cost because you'll underprice yourself every single time. And that is literally one of the biggest problems that I see consultants and coaches face when they're not doing as well as they want to do. I almost always say, okay, talk to me about your prices. Let me see what you're charging for this. And there are a few things that we'll talk about in this video about how you can first reframe your value proposition so that then you can elevate your price and do value-based pricing. So another disadvantage of cost-based pricing is that you're not taking into account the market and what the market believes what you offer is worth. A problem with that is if you set price too low, you also may end up with a shortage. And if you're the one delivering the products and services, especially if you offer coaching or consulting that you deliver yourself, you could end up really burnt out. So what is value-based pricing? Value-based pricing is setting price based on what a client is willing to pay. This may involve what's called price discrimination, which is where different clients pay a different amount based on what it's worth for them. Now, you've seen price discrimination probably in airline seats. You know that with an airline might charge a different amount on a different day, a different amount for a different seat, a different amount for a different type of traveler. Like, for example, it generally charges business travelers more than personal. How do they do that? Well, they know that business travelers tend to want to fly in the morning or during the week, whereas vacationers tend to travel during the weekend and be more flexible, right? That's price discrimination. That's the airline saying, well, it's worth more to a business traveler, or not even worth more, but they're able to pay more. Probably they're expensing it to someone else, so we're going to charge them more. Now, the advantages of value-based pricing is that generally it's way more profitable. You don't leave money on the table. And one of the biggest disadvantages is that it's not an exact science. It requires, in my opinion, a lot more prep work, homework, and discernment to set pricing than does cost-based pricing. But I will say this, the amount of time and energy you invest in mastering the art of value-based pricing, I think more than pays off in the end in the form of higher prices and more profitability. By the way, when you're done with this video, you might want to check out another video I did that goes more into depth into how to set value-based price. It's called How to Do Value-Based Pricing. And when you're done with this video, you can click on the link below in the notes. And while you're at it, why don't you just go ahead and subscribe to my channel, like it, and maybe post a comment below. Another disadvantage, and one of the reasons that people tend to stay away from value-based pricing, is the concern that clients might talk to each other, right? Like you're sitting next to the person on the airplane and that person paid half of what you paid. You might be a little pissed off. And essentially it might feel unfair, like clients who pay more are subsidizing the clients who pay less. Now, these are very real concerns, and I totally get it. And that's one of the reasons that the way I do value-based pricing is a little bit different. I'll tell you about that in a moment. So which do you choose? Well, obviously, I am partial to value-based pricing. It's more profitable. It requires a little more work, but it's really worth it in the end to capture that additional market value and deliver better results to clients. The thing that I do a little bit differently that you might want to consider is I don't advocate doing value-based pricing, price discrimination per each client for a standard program that you do. In other words, there are kind of two types of clients that I see most of all. It's the clients that fit into the mold of what I'm offering, that they're a perfect client for my established programs. And then there are clients that fit over here into a more custom program. So first, let's talk about these clients, the clients that fit into a standard program. What I do is instead of pricing the standard program differently depending on the client, which I agree would be kind of rude if a client found out that they paid more or less than another client, I basically have one standard price for all of those clients with one discount for paying in full and for buying within 24 hours of seeing the offer. So that gives them an incentive to act quickly. And then I have a VIP version of that program for the people who are willing to pay more. I give them a more exclusive VIP type of version of the same program. So right there I'm price discriminating, but I'm discriminating based on segment rather than based on individual client. See the difference? And then over here on the custom, what I do is I sell a basic phase 1 initial package to every client. So if I've got a client that needs a big project, it's a consulting client, it's a lot of money, then what I do is I sell first one standard program, which is the phase 1, some sort of discovery process. And then from that phase 1, I'm able to determine the real value to the client and set the phase 2 price based on what I know it's worth to that client. And that way I don't have to run into a situation where clients are talking to each other, because these clients are custom clients. They're not in this box over here. Make sense? I hope this was helpful for you. If you are a coach, a consultant, an expert of some type, and you're looking to raise your profitability, your enjoyment, your fulfillment of your business, then I can help. Let's connect and discuss if and how I can support you. You can find me at superstaractivator.com/go.